Good morning, Year 3, and welcome back to our YouTube channel. I hope you've all had a fantastic weekend, and I hope as well you're all feeling really proud because last week you completed some fantastic writing. I had a good chance to have a look at all of the emails that came in, all of the fantastic diary entries that you produced last week in literacy. And I really do think you absolutely achieved what we set out to do there, which was to make the best piece of writing you've ever done. And actually, I saw so many of you who had really made an effort to put those features that we looked at in. There's so many of you who had written really convincingly as a Victorian character and had put in lots of information that we'd learned in history as well. They were stunning pieces of writing, and I'm really impressed. Now, today in literacy, we're going to be moving on to think about a brand new unit. So we're going to leave behind our work on diary entries. I think certainly those of us in class, we might write a little kind of bridge in between for our kind of Victorian character so that we'll introduce this kind of next bit. But really, our main bit of learning now, we're moving on. We're not thinking about diary entries anymore. We're not actually thinking about the writing purpose anymore. So let's actually just recap that very briefly. What was the main purpose of our writing when we were doing our diary entries? Hopefully you remember this. I've sort of been drumming this into you along the way. That's right. Yeah, we were writing to entertain. And as I've said, we're going to actually leave that behind now. We're not going to be thinking anymore this unit about writing to entertain. We're going to be coming at it from a different angle now. So as authors, we're no longer intending just to entertain our audience and our readers. What we're going to be aiming to do in this unit, we're shifting focus, and now we're going to be writing to persuade. Now, hopefully that's a term that you'll be at least partly familiar with. Hopefully that'll ring a few bells. Don't worry too much if you can't remember exactly what it means at this stage. But let's try to recap what we do already know. Maybe you can remember what it means. Maybe you can remember a time in year 2 where you've done this, where you've used this type of writing. Have a bit of a chat at home. So pause the video here and discuss these questions. Can you tell me at the moment what writing to persuade means? Once you've kind of explored and unpacked that question, what kind of authors might want to persuade you? When might someone try to persuade you? Where might you see this kind of writing? So pause the video there, have a bit of a chat, come back to me when you're done. Okay, so hopefully you've discussed this at home. Writing to persuade means trying to convince the reader to agree with you, or to convince the reader to do something. So when we're writing to persuade, we're trying to convince people. So we're trying to kind of put forward a case, put forward a bit of an argument to say why the reader should either agree with your viewpoint, agree with what you're saying, or to convince them to do something, to perform a particular action. So persuasive writing is non-fiction almost always, and we might see it in the form of a speech, a letter, an advert, or even a magazine article, and we'll look at that in a moment. There are all kinds of different techniques you can use to make your writing more persuasive, and we're going to be learning some of those things throughout this unit of writing. Now, some of the features and techniques and things that we've learned already will still be applicable in this unit. So we're still going to want to be selecting the best vocabulary possible. We're probably still going to be thinking about adjectives, fronted adverbials and paragraphs would still be brilliant things to include, but there's some kind of specific features which really we would usually and predominantly use when we're writing to persuade, and we're going to be learning those over the course of the next week or so. So the types of writing you might see when we're writing to persuade then. So speeches. If someone is making a speech trying to get you to do something, that's going to be a persuasive speech. Now, I've put this picture of our Prime Minister Boris Johnson here because actually he's needing to make a lot of persuasive speeches at the moment, partly persuading the public to do certain things, also persuading members of parliament to vote for certain things. And you can see there on the lectern that he's standing on, that's the name of this little kind of plinth or table you can see here. It's got that really important message, stay home, protect the NHS, save lives. And that's actually an example of one of the features that we're going to be looking at in more detail tomorrow. So maybe you can think back to this then. Letters and emails are very often persuasive in nature. So if you're writing a letter to maybe convince a company to give you your money back, if you're writing a letter, maybe persuading someone to hire you or give you a job, those would be persuasive letters. Adverts in all different shapes and forms are going to be persuasive in nature. So I say all different forms there because, of course, there's all sorts of different types of adverts. There are some in newspapers and magazines, which are print adverts. There are video adverts. There are all sorts of different adverts you might see. I've also put up here a bit of a kind of modern one, this, videos and vlogs. I think increasingly YouTubers and similar are persuading people to buy things in their vlogs and their videos. Maybe you've noticed this when you've been using YouTube before. Maybe a YouTuber you really like has suddenly talked about this wonderful new product which they're showing you in lots of detail. That's a way of persuading you to buy it. So that's another way we will see persuasive writing. And if vlogs was the kind of the most modern form of persuasion, this is a bit more of an old form, a newspaper column, but these are still really, really important. I've got a screenshot there of one, I think probably the most significant newspaper column that was written in the last 10 years or so, it's our Prime Minister again, Boris Johnson. He wrote a really significant and historic newspaper column in 2016, persuading people to vote to leave the European Union. And of course, they did. So a really significant newspaper column there. And that was a very persuasive one for lots of people in the country. Okay, so these are some of the sort of forms of writing we might see persuasion used. So today in literacy, we are going to be doing a cold task for our Writing to Persuade unit. Now, mums and dads, you may be a bit less familiar with the language I'm using here. Hopefully, kids, you'll know what I mean by a cold and hot task. But a cold task we do at the start of a new unit before we've done any new learning on it. And the idea there is that it shows you what you are capable of already. So it's a chance for you to sort of remember all the things you've learned previously, to try and sort of recap and revise and sort of recall some of those things that you've used already. If you're in school, of course, it's a really nice opportunity for your teacher to see what you can already do. So I can sort of adapt my planning and sort of tweak what we're doing to match your starting ability, if you like. But actually, even for you guys at home, I think this will be really useful for you as parents. You can see what your children already understand by this. It might be a lot. They might do a fantastic advert. It might actually be their starting point is not so far forward. Either of those things are fine. I don't want anyone to think I'm expecting like a perfect advert already. That's not the case. Really, it's just for us to get a good kind of starting point, a bit of a kind of base assessment for where everyone's at. And what we're going to do, we're going to do our cold task today, then we're going to do all of our learning, and then at the end of the unit, we're going to do our hot task, and that's when you'll show everyone how far you've come. You'll put all that new learning, which we're going to do, into practice, and you'll write a really fantastic piece at the end. So today, for our cold task, we are going to be making an advert. I've used the word leaflet in here. We're doing this in the form of an advertising leaflet. Don't get too bogged down in the leaflet aspect there. Really, that just means it's normally on a folded bit of paper. But really, the crucial thing here is an advert. Because I think this is probably the most common sort of persuasive writing you will have seen. And whether you've kind of realized it or been conscious of it or not, you will have been exposed to probably thousands, if not more, frankly, thousands of adverts in your life. We encounter them all the time. Every time you log on online, adverts. When you're reading a newspaper or a magazine, adverts. When you're watching TV, adverts. They are everywhere. They can be really pervasive in society. And so actually, when you start thinking about it, I'm hoping you'll have some good ideas for what kind of things you are likely to see in an advert, because that's what you're going to be writing today. Now, the advert that I'd like you to write for your cold task is going to be based on this video, which I'm going to put a link to in the description box. So now would be a good time to pause my video, go down here and click on this link in the description. And there, hopefully it's a nice little short video, which I think you'll enjoy. While you're watching it, I want you to think about the product that this little alien guy has bought, because that product is what you are going to be advertising. So I want you to imagine that you are an advertiser and you have been tasked with persuading people to buy this product, the Hoverbike. And I want you to write an advert for the Hoverbike. Okay, so this is your cold task for today. You're going to be writing me a persuasive advert, persuading me, convincing me to buy a Hoverbike. Now, I think it's maybe a bit of a spoiler. There's no such thing as a Hoverbike, I'm afraid. Sorry, guys, take it off your Christmas list. But that just means you can be a little bit more creative here. You can come up with some ideas yourself. You can make certain facts up. So you don't need to be an expert in a Hoverbike. You can make it up. You can say, you know, what the top speed is, how much it costs, all of that sort of stuff. That's up to you. You can make that up. It doesn't need to be factually accurate because there's no such thing as a Hoverbike. I've put up in here, there are some things you already know how to use, like adjectives, adverbs, fronted adverbials, and paragraphs. Those would be some good things to include today. We will also be learning along the way in this unit some persuasive features, and we're going to be talking a lot more detail about that tomorrow. So have fun with this, present this how you want. It can be in whatever form you want. Get creative, make me a persuasive advert for a Hoverbike. Okay, have fun with that, everybody. Good luck, and I'll see you back here for maths a bit later on. See you later.